Today's episode is going to be on who was the first Eldoria. I guess you've noticed, we've certainly noticed, that there's hundreds of fantasy worlds and countries and people with the name Eldoria. Where did that name originate? Well, we believe it originated in Brisbane, way back in the 1970s. I will do a voiceover to narrate what all the photos mean. There's also in the Queensland State Library an oral recount of Keith and I of the early days of role-playing in Brisbane, Australia. There's also some artifacts there if you want to get them and have a look. And we believe with all this evidence, it backs up that actually Eldoria started in Brisbane, Australia. Who knew? In 1979, in a role-playing shop, a sign was put up advertising a club for role players. About 100 people turned up and only 2 girls out of the whole lot. So with 100 people, the club was quite big. So they decided to form a committee. Then the committee decided that these role players needed a world to play in, and each group would be playing in the same world. So on the back of a napkin, Greg Lane drew the outline of a world. He gave it to Keith Doan, and Keith Doan, being Keith Doan, filled it in and described all the places and wrote about the cities and the races, and on it went for many years. So this club, Queensland Science Fiction and Role-Playing Society, and later on Queensland Role Players, played in the world of Eldoria for many years. There were special character handouts, there were tournament games, and lots of information about the world of Eldoria. So this is where I think was the birthplace of Eldoria.
There was a club, Queensland Science Fiction and Fantasy Society, that we joined, and I joined hoping to be able to play the game, but they find you a DM. DMs are always in short supply, so you end up GMing, and then you end up GMing for life.
Because Keith sort of started, I think, the world Eldorian.
It did start at Queensland Fantasy Society.
Yeah,
wasn't it a map on a buddy?
Yeah, Greg Lane had done a basic map of what looks now like Eldoria, and he knew I could do artwork, so he said, could you blow it up and make it a big A3 map? And all he thought I was going to do was do the outline that he'd done, but I ended up just because I'm me, putting names of cities in it everywhere and things like that, and he was really amazed by that, and that's where we started really designing Eldoria from there.
Many of the club members of that original club went on to do other things. Some of them developed a company called Dark Star Gaming, and the first module they produced was Mindbane in the world of Eldoria in 1982. This module was sold in role-playing shops all around Australia. Over time, the old club dissolved, as clubs do, and a new club developed called Club Tanelorn. As part of Club Tanelorn, there was the Tanelorn Design Group, and they played and designed and produced material in Eldoria, not only for the club, but for many conventions around Australia. We attended many conventions multiple times, including CanCon, BrisCon, Maelstrom, SidCon, Oran Big Weekend, and Arcanicon in Melbourne. And again, at all these conventions, our tournament modules featured Eldoria. In the 2000s, the club scene was still happening, Club Tanelorn, but something very different happened to Keith. He left his regular work and went to work for Oran, famous for Dark Rain and Trains. There, his first module he produced was Web of the Widow. It was under the Hahn system, but they decided then to swap to Keith's world, Eldoria, so the next modules were produced there. Shades of Grey was produced in 2001, Dark Awakenings, Guardian in 2001, Dark Awakenings, Shadowland in 2002, Sanctuary in 2002, and about that time Oran decided, although these products were selling quite well and quite popular, that D20 was not the way to go. So Keith left there and went back to his regular work. For the next few years, he searched around and tried to get a publisher for Encyclopedia Eldoria, and eventually in 2005, Comstar Games produced the first edition of Encyclopedia Eldoria. In 2015, we discovered online publishing and drive-through RPG. Publishing under Friends of Eldoria or FO, we produced our first module Rat's Nest on June 29th, 2016. Most of our modules are written under Keith Doan and Angela Caffrey, and we have over 87 titles, including mundane items tables, newspapers such as the Darringmore Dart, cities such as Darringmore, market stalls, interesting locations, and best of all, Keith got to publish the second edition Eldoria and the Reliquarium. All are on RPG drive-through, but he also produced some special collector's editions of hardbound volumes. More recently, we dabbled in online platforms. One was our Patreon account was started and our YouTube channel, Roleplaying Eldoria. We presently have 83 videos and are playing around with formats that suits us and people like to watch. There is also in the Queensland State Library an oral history by Keith Doan and Angela Caffrey of the early role-playing in Brisbane. So that's our evidence to back up our assertion that we were the first Eldoria. It's nice to think that a small Brisbane group had some contribution to the great role-playing legacy of the world. But does it matter in the scheme of things? Anyway, does it matter?
It matters to me. I don't care if someone calls their world Eldoria. It's only if someone gets narky about it and comes and tells me that, hey, I'm going to sue you because your world's called Eldoria and so is mine. And then I think I can prove that mine dates back to 1979.
Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed reading some of the comments. It's nice to hear what other people think that aren't just in our little Brisbane group. Thanks, and like if you can. See you next time.